You seek a compassion that embraces you while you sink, that validates your victim narrative and makes you feel special in your pain. The mental numbing industry has sold you this corrupted version. Being compassionate has become synonymous with being an accomplice to your emotional story, offering a consolation that anesthetizes without ever healing. The market has transformed empathy into morbid complicity. You demand that someone holds your hand while the gangrene of illusion spreads, calling this self-deception acceptance. But here lies hard lucidity. Buddhism hands you the rope, it does not jump into the hole with you. The truth seems cold to you only because you are feverish with lies, burning in narratives that feed the exact system of suffering you claim to want to cross. What your ego labels as a lack of empathy is merely factual reality refusing to validate your drama. Strategic compassion does not lie. It cuts what is rotting in your mental mechanism, and that hurts more than any false embrace. Karuna, operational compassion, does not exist so that you feel understood. It exists to eradicate the root cause of your pain, even if the process is surgical and without sentimental anesthesia. The universe is a system that does not negotiate with your preferences, does not recognize your trauma as special, and does not treat your ego as a protagonist. For the conscious elite, the rawness of truth is the only real medicine. As long as you demand comfort, you will continue to operate as the walking dead, reacting to impulses of a functional ego that prefers the security of the prison to the rigor of freedom. This is the training, trading comfortable mindfulness for mental sovereignty. Your mind operates on a fatal misconception. You believe that your suffering is a personalized event, an injustice of fate that deserves an attentive audience. This is the clinical diagnosis of the walking dead. They treat their pain as a trophy of identity, a special victim seeking a benevolent father in Buddhism to validate their wounds. But hard lucidity reveals that what you call my suffering is merely the result of a system functioning exactly as it was programmed. There is nothing personal about your despair. There are only gears of resistance colliding with factual reality. As long as you demand that the world bow before your sensitivity, you will only be feeding the fever of illusion that keeps you trapped. Strategic Buddhism does not treat suffering as a sin or bad luck, but as an engineering failure in your sovereign consciousness. The anatomy of this mechanism is simple. You want the impermanent to be eternal and the impersonal to be yours. Operational compassion, or karuna, looks at this scenario and does not see someone to be spared, but a process to be interrupted. It is the coldness of the surgeon who ignores the patient's screams to remove the tumor that is killing them from within. The truth is gelid because it does not possess the temperature of the ego. It is the absolute zero of factual reality where your excuses cannot survive. The conscious elite does not seek the immediate relief of anesthesia, but the efficacy of the cut that dissolves the root of the error. To cross this state, the protocol requires you to stop decorating your symptoms with emotional validation. The operator of lucidity observes the pain without assigning it a name or an owner. The training consists of looking at your own system and admitting, this is not about me, this is just the friction between my resistance and the facts. It is an act of rigor that separates those seeking comfortable mindfulness from those seeking true mental sovereignty. By removing the moralization of suffering, you withdraw the fuel from the ego and begin to dissolve the biological reactivity that governs you. But be aware, clarity is a cold desert. Are you ready to abandon the warmth of your own lie? The wellness market taught you that detaching is a gentle process of letting go, like a leaf falling into a lake. This is a lie for the walking dead. In factual reality, your attachment is a biological addiction. It is the ego's mechanism trying to guarantee an impossible security in an impermanent universe. You do not hold on to things out of love, but out of an abject fear of facing the void without the labels that define you. This attachment is not a virtue. It is a chain that drains your energy and fragments your attention. For the conscious elite, attachment is seen for what it truly is: systemic sabotage that prevents you from operating with hard lucidity. Breaking ties is a war maneuver. It is not about owning nothing, but about being owned by nothing. The operator of lucidity understands that every identification with your career, with your trauma, or with your self-image is a point of vulnerability through which the system of suffering drags you. Buddhist detachment is the strategy of removing the target. When you do not identify with the ego's gains and losses, you become invulnerable to the world's reactivity. It is raw realism applied to possession. We use tools and relationships, but we cut the umbilical cord of emotional dependency to maintain sovereign consciousness. Your training demands that you stop negotiating with what slows you down. The protocol of rigor consists of identifying where your peace depends on something external smile and, deliberately, crossing that fear through renunciation. It is not a gentle release. It is an act of willpower to dissolve the illusion that you need that object or validation to be whole. By practicing this clinical detachment, you reclaim command of your system and stop being a hostage to circumstances. In the vacuum left by what was cut, a clarity arises that the walking dead will never know. Do you have the courage to find out what remains when you stop clinging to your chains? The walking dead seek Buddhism, like someone looking for shelter from the rain, hoping that compassion is a cloak that will protect them from the rawness of life. You have been conditioned to believe that being spiritualized means being spared from pain, demanding that reality be filtered so as not to wound your sensitivity. The wellness market feeds this fever, offering emotional bandages that only hide the infection beneath comfortable mantras. But this consolation is your greatest enemy. It keeps your mental mechanism in a state of perpetual infancy, where you prefer the lie that calms you to the truth that sets you free. Your demand for a warm hug is, in fact, the ego's resistance to facing the raw realism of its own dramatic insignificance. Buddhist truth seems cold because it is the absolute zero of neutrality. It does not possess the temperature of your preferences or the warmth of your attachments. Under hard lucidity, compassion is not a feeling, it is a strategy of mental disinfection. The sovereign does not offer a shoulder to cry on, but the cold steel of discernment to separate the fact from your emotional interpretation. If the truth burns, it is because it is consuming the lies with which you dressed yourself to avoid facing the vacuum. The coldness you fear is merely the absence of the distortion you call love. It is the impersonal clarity that allows the conscious elite to observe the fall of an empire or a strand of hair with the same operational rigor. For the operator of lucidity, healing does not come from comfort, but from the precision of the cut. Your training consists of accepting that the scalpel of truth is the most radical act of love that exists, for it is the only one capable of dissolving the root of your suffering. By stopping the search for anesthesia in comfortable mindfulness, you begin to cross through the pain via factual observation, gaining the dignity of one who no longer needs emotional crutches to remain standing. The question that remains for your system to process is simple. Do you want a painkiller that prolongs your agony as the walking dead? Or do you have the courage to face the ice of truth to conquer your sovereign consciousness? The walking dead confuse attachment with emotional depth. You believe that being worried or clinging to something is proof that you care, when in truth it is merely your mechanism trying to control the uncontrollable. The comfort market says you must honor your bonds, but under hard lucidity, these bonds are steel cables that transfer the chaos of the world directly into your nervous center. You have become an extension of the things you own and the people you try to hold on to, losing your functional autonomy in exchange for a false security that suffocates you. Your care is, in truth, a failure of perception that allows any external fluctuation to destabilize your internal peace. Strategic compassion demands the deliberate act of breaking ties with the need for validation and permanence. The operator of lucidity is not someone who does not feel, but someone who is not moved by the reactivity of what they feel. This is a maneuver of raw realism. If you are not anchored to anything that can be taken away, you become invulnerable to loss. This coldness is your technical armor against systemic suffering. By observing the nature of facts, you realize that holding on is a futile effort that consumes your rigor. Freedom is not in gaining the world, but in not being the property of anything the world contains. Your training focuses on keeping your hands open, using life's resources without merging with them. The conscious elite practice sovereignty through clinical detachment, knowing that everything that is born is destined to dissolve. By crossing through the fear of the void, you discover that what remains is not loneliness, but a sovereign consciousness that cannot be blackmailed by circumstances. Detachment is your greatest strategic asset. It is the refusal to be a hostage to a functional ego that lives on temporal crumbs. In the silence of this vacuum, you finally stop reacting and start operating. Are you willing to cut the cords that define you to finally become free? The walking dead wander through the world believing that their eyes show them the truth when, in reality, they are merely projectors of an internal film. You do not see facts. You see your opinions about facts, filtered through layers of emotional noise and traumas that your mechanism refuses to release. The wellness market encourages you to change your narrative or tell a better story, but that is just swapping one illusion for another. Under hard lucidity, any story you tell yourself is a distortion that distances you from raw realism. You live trapped in lenses soiled by I like or I don't like, confusing your biological preferences with the laws of the universe. The discipline of the sovereign requires you to dismantle your factory of fictions. The operator of lucidity trains the gaze to strip every event of its dramatic weight. An insult is just a sound wave. A loss is just a change in the state of matter. The moment you remove the adjective from the noun, suffering loses its logistical support. This is the rigor of seeing factual reality without the filter of I. The coldness of truth emerges when you stop projecting human warmth into processes that are purely mechanical simple and impersonal. Seeing beyond the narrative is not a mystical act. It is a data cleaning strategy so that your system stops processing emotional trash. The conscious elite does not seek the meaning of life, but the clarity of vision. Your training consists of observing the world without the need to label it to feel safe. By crossing the barrier of words, you discover that reality does not need your interpretation to exist. It just is. This interpretive silence is the foundation of your sovereign consciousness. When you stop telling yourself stories to justify your pain, you finally gain the power to dissolve the reactivity that enslaves you. Do you have the courage to look into the mirror and see only what is there, without the protection of the lies that define you as the walking dead? The walking dead confuse reactivity with personality. You believe that exploding or yielding to impulses of revenge and indignation is a proof of strength when, in truth, it is merely your biological mechanism suffering a short circuit. The mass market romanticizes the explosive temperament, but under hard lucidity, every time you react to an external stimulus, you hand over command of your system to the one who provoked you. You are not the master of your actions. You are a chemical puppet whose strings are pulled by insults, praise, or losses. This false strength is the greatest evidence of your lack of rigor and your total absence of existential autonomy. The true ethics of the conscious elite is tactical invulnerability. The operator of lucidity does not suppress emotion. He observes the chemical explosion in the hardware and refuses to give it movement. In raw realism, precise action is born from silence, not from emotional noise. If you act because you felt, you are a slave. If you act out of strategy, you are a sovereign. Buddhist coldness is the necessary detachment to see the board without the blurring of anger. It is the capacity to maintain the center while the hurricane of reactivity tries to topple your sovereign consciousness. Your training consists of creating a space of time between stimulus and response. The protocol of rigor requires you to inhabit that vacuum where biology has no authority. By crossing the impulse to react, you cease to be a processor of emotional trash and become an agent of discernment. Mental sovereignty is conquered when no external event, no matter how chaotic, can force your system into an automatic response. Are you capable of sustaining your gaze in the face of offense and deciding your next maneuver without a single drop of sweat or hatred altering your pulse? The walking dead live in a state of alert, desperately trying to convince the world of their righteousness, their intentions, or their truth. You waste an obscene amount of vital energy building paper walls made of words, believing that if you explain yourself enough, the other will finally validate your existence. Under hard lucidity, this need for defense is the ultimate proof that you are still a slave to others' perception. Your mechanism collapses whenever your image is threatened, revealing that your peace is a fragile construction that depends on the consent of others to remain standing. Factual truth does not need lawyers, it simply is. The operator of lucidity understands that arguing with ignorance or with someone else's emotional projection is a waste of system resources. In raw realism, if you know what a fact is, external opinion becomes static noise, incapable of altering the structure of your reality. Silence is not an escape. It is the manifestation of the conscious elite who refuse to descend to the level of reactivity. The coldness of not explaining yourself is the recognition that your value and your clarity are not up for debate. It is the immobility of the mountain before the cries of the valley. Your training consists of abandoning the vanity of being right. The protocol of rigor requires you to sustain your truth without the crutch of social approval. By crossing the discomfort of being misunderstood without trying to correct the other's narrative, you conquer true sovereign consciousness. Stop being a processor of opinions and become your own center of gravity, where factual reality is enough to maintain your balance. Do you have the strength necessary to remain in silence while the world projects illusions about you? Or is your ego still needy enough to require the last word to feel alive? The walking dead consume their existence trying to freeze time, clinging to moments, people, and identities as if permanence were a vested right. You see change as a personal aggression from the universe, a failure in the mechanism that should guarantee your eternal comfort. The self-help market sells you techniques to keep what you love, but under hard lucidity, this attempt at retention is what generates the agony of loss. By resisting the natural flow of things, you transform the beauty of transformation into the terror of annihilation, living in a perpetual anxiety that the next second will steal what you define as yours. Impermanence is not a punishment, it is the dynamic of the system in full operation. The operator of lucidity observes that everything that arises is programmed to dissolve, and finds in this their greatest strength. In raw realism, if nothing is fixed, no pain is eternal and no error is final. The coldness of truth is what allows you to let go of the weight of carrying the past and the anxiety of securing the future. When you stop fighting against the cyclical nature of matter, you stop suffering by anticipation. The death of each moment is what allows the birth of your next strategic maneuver in sovereign consciousness. Your training requires you to learn to inhabit movement. The protocol of rigor consists of looking at what you most fear losing and admitting, this is already gone, I just haven't realized it yet. By crossing through the anticipated morning of all things, you kill fear at the root. The conscious elite do not seek stability in external objects, but in their own capacity to operate within change. You become invincible, not because nothing changes, but because you have stopped defining yourself by what is transitory. Do you have the rigor necessary to see your life as a flow of constantly mutating data, or are you still trying to build stone monuments upon the water? The Walking Dead live in a state of constant panic because they believe their personality is a solid monument that must be defended. You spend immense resources of your system trying to maintain the coherence of an image you created to please the world, or to flee from your traumas. Under hard lucidity, what you call I is merely a collection of habits, edited memories, and chemical reactions that your mechanism repeats in a loop. You are not a special essence. You are a biological process that has become addicted to its own narrative, protecting a ghost as if it were your life. Buddhist compassion is cold because it looks through your mask and does not recognize your special victim. The operator of lucidity understands that the ego is merely interface software, useful for paying bills and interacting in society, but irrelevant to sovereign consciousness. In raw realism, the ego is a function, not a fact. When you stop identifying with the role you play, you gain the freedom to use it without being enslaved by it. The coldness of truth dissolves personal importance, transforming the drama of the self into simple technical data processing. Your training consists of observing the ego as if it were a stranger operating your hardware. The protocol of rigor requires you to stop taking your offenses and achievements personally. By crossing the illusion of identity, you stop bleeding from wounds that belong only to a fictional character. The conscious elite inhabit the world with tactical lightness, knowing that the only real thing is the clarity that observes the movement. Do you have the rigor necessary to admit that your life story is just noise in the system? Or is your ego still too large to allow you to awaken? The Walking Dead demand a compassion that is an accomplice to their stagnation. For you, being good is validating others' excuses and expecting them to validate yours, creating a pact of mediocrity where no one wakes anyone up. The wellness market calls this a safe space, but under hard lucidity, this is an emotional morgue. Validating someone's illusion is not love. It is helping the person dig their own mental grave. If your compassion has no teeth, it is nothing more than vanity disguised as altruism, serving only to make you feel like a good person, while the other continues to suffer in their reactive mechanism. True compassion, or operational karuna, is the act of shedding light where the ego wants shadow, no matter who it hurt. The operator of lucidity understands that the greatest cruelty is omission in the face of error. In raw realism, compassion is a scalpel. It cuts the identification with suffering to reveal the sovereign consciousness underneath. It is an impersonal force that does not care about the ego's temporary comfort, but about the definitive liberation of the system. This Buddhist coldness is, in fact, the highest level of care. It is the love that has the courage to be the villain in the story of your special victim, so that you can, finally, awaken. Your training consists of learning to receive and apply this rigor. The conscious elite do not seek the embrace that comforts the illusion, but the shock that destroys it. The protocol of rigor requires you to stop begging for softness and start valuing the clarity that wounds you. By crossing the pain of the insulted ego, you discover that what was destroyed was never you, but only the gangrene of your self-deception. Real compassion does not make you feel loved, it makes you become free. Are you ready to abandon the security of your disease and accept the cure that the ice of truth offers? Truth is cold because it does not need you. The universe has no obligation to validate your personal drama or to warm your ego against the vacuum of impermanence. What we call cold compassion is, in fact, the only form of love that does not treat you as an invalid. At the end of this thought system, an enlightened version of you does not remain. Only the silence of what is factual remains. If this scares you, you are still trapped in the mechanism. If this sets you free, you have begun to operate with mental sovereignty. The door is open, but it requires you to leave all your personal importance outside. This video was not made to entertain your intellect, but to test your rigor. If you have reached this point and felt the discomfort of the cold steel of truth, you belong to the conscious elite who have stopped running. Do not give a like out of habit. If you accept the challenge of crossing through your own illusion, write in the comments, operating in hard lucidity. Subscribe only if you are ready for your certainties to be dissolved in the upcoming videos. The anesthesia is over. The awakening is now.